Now, I have a quote that I want to read to you from Naomi Wolf's book, The End of America, Letter of Warning to a Young Patriot. And it's from page 132. The quote is, "We have to abandon the passive role we have accepted as mere consumers of the media. We must see ourselves in a new light, or rather, see ourselves once again in revolutionary light, as citizens with responsibilities to speak the truth." Now, I'm sure if some of you have been seeing the debates, Republican and Democrat, the truth isn't always as important as just saying something that is, going to get them elected. So I'd like to go into the next clip, and this is of, it speaks about Ron Paul, when Ron Paul and Rudy Giuliani were in the debate, and they were talking about 9/11.
The Republican presidential candidate, Congressman Ron Paul, barely shows up in the polls at all. But one thing he said at the last GOP debate is out in the open tonight because it is still making headlines and causing tremendous outrage. He was talking about the 9/11 attacks and what caused them. Just listen to this.
I'm suggesting that we listen to the people who attacked us and the reason they did it. And they are delighted that we're over there because Osama bin Laden has said, I am glad you're over on our sand because we can target you so much easier. They have already now, since that time, have killed 3,400 of our men, and I don't think it was necessary.
It's an extraordinary statement of someone who lived through the attack of September 11, that we invited the attack because we were attacking Iraq. I don't think I've ever heard that before. And I've heard some pretty absurd explanations for September 11.
All right, so you can tell where the applause was that night and where the crowd stood on that. But wait, didn't Ron Paul have a point there? That the U.S. meddling in the Middle East has caused some resentment against America. Let's turn to CNN contributor Roland Martin. He happens to think so. He wrote a commentary about it for CNN.com. He's back with us along with the rest of our panel, Ben Ferguson and Thom Hartmann. Welcome back. All right, Roland, let's talk a little bit about this piece you wrote about 9/11, and you said that there is a point that deserves to be debated here. I want you to set the record straight tonight. Are you saying that the United States is in any way responsible for bringing on the attacks of 9/11?
Well, first of all, it's not a matter of is the U.S. responsible for bringing on the attacks. What he was saying is it impacts foreign policy. What we did not play was the clip when he cited, for instance, the American overthrowing of the Iranian government in 1953 of Mohammad Mossadegh, the prime minister, really over oil to help British petroleum, then Anglo-Iranian oil, and how that was the reason cited in 1979 when they overthrew the U.S. embassy and kidnapped Americans. See, the problem, Paula, is as Americans, we really don't want to look at history. We act as if what took place last week's impact this week, when in fact,
but other
countries 20, 30 years ago does contribute.
Wait. Answer the question. So you're saying that if you look at the foreign policy of the United States, it contributed to the anger that sparked 9/11.
And that is the reason that, as Paul was saying, cited by the individuals who did it. He is not justifying the attack. He is not saying it's okay. In fact, it is absolutely wrong and we should have struck back. But what he's saying is you have to understand what the other person is thinking to factor into your equation.
All right, Ben.
No, what you want to do is...
Hold on, Roland.
No, wait, Ben, let me ask you this question. Are you going to deny tonight that U.S. foreign policy had anything to do with the attacks of 9/11?
Yeah, you know what? Yes, and I'll tell you why. Because these fundamentalists are crazy. They use Mickey Mouse to teach their kids to blow themselves up. Explain the USS Cole bombing. Explain the first World Trade Center bombing. We weren't doing jack squat around the world to irritate or anger them. Hold on a second, Roland. You had plenty of time. Give me 1 second, okay? My point is this. These people are crazy. They're willing to blow themselves up. They're not rational. We could leave Iraq, Afghanistan, send them millions of dollars, help train their kids to blow us up, and they'd still kill us because they hate us. They always have, and they always will.
All right, let me bring Thom into the conversation. You've heard what both of our guests have had to say tonight. Your reaction?
People don't hate in a vacuum. And it's not limited to Muslims or to people from the Middle East. I mean, Tim McVeigh thought he was justified. He was on the anniversary, the second anniversary of Waco. Christian terrorism. I mean, there's a whole variety of these problems. But to look at any of these things, frankly, I'm agreeing with points of both of your guests. To look at this, particularly Roland, to look at this in a vacuum, I think is a disaster. We do need to learn the lessons of history. And that was what Ron Paul, what Ron Paul was doing in the Republican debate is something that Dennis Kucinich very often does in the Democratic debates, and that is he was being the truth teller. He was the little boy who was saying the emperor wears no clothes. And that's a really important role to play, even though it's a role that nobody else seemed to want to hear.
You guys are smart guys. Ron, please tell me you understand that Ron Paul is a no one who wanted to make a name for himself, so he said something a little bit extreme and crazy to get some notoriety.
Ron
he's not mainstream.
Ron Paul was speaking the truth, and look at the response across the country to it. It was very positive.
It was not positive. It was absolutely not positive.
No, stop it, Ben. The fundamental problem, Paula, is people like Ben don't like reading. They don't want to accept history.
It's amazing how you don't know me, and that's not true. History does repeat itself in this country.
Ben, listening to what you just said, you act as if when America does something, like it has no impact on someone else. It absolutely does.
Well, and Roland, it's not just that.
Let me ask you one
the other Republican candidates as well. They're all trying to demagogue this issue too.
I guess I'm crazy with another 11 people.
I can't understand all three of you, and you're talking over each other, Ben. You're going to get the last word tonight, but you can't have it both ways. You can't sit here and deny tonight that foreign policy had nothing to do and just write it off as a bunch of crazos that hate America. Don't you believe the history of the involvement in this country overseas in various places had something to do with this anger
I think they hate America. America is an easy place to hate because we do have a great life here.
That simple.
I agree. Hold on a second. I agree that this country, there's people around the world that hate us. But look at Lebanon today. Al-Qaeda is going after them, and that's a 180 from what America is. They love to hate people. They teach hate. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to play our foreign policy as trying to be nice all the time because when we are nice, they still blow us up. And if you look at what they tell their children, they say, blow yourself up for our God.
And why isn't Sweden
that is not normal or rational.
Okay, gentlemen, I got to leave it there. Thom Hartmann, Ben Ferguson, Roland Martin. Interesting discussion. You'll have to catch your breath now.
I think that clip kind of points to the type of person that sometimes, I know that I debate with sometimes, the Ben character in the clip, they like to make a simple statement in a couple sentences and say that that's all that something has to do with, the issue, and you can't just blatantly say they just hate us because we have freedom. We have freedom here, and we are rich, and I mean it's not as simple as that. And I think that clip really points that. Especially Rudy supporters, Rudy Giuliani supporters, they want this war with Iraq and possibly Iran to